The Half-Life series showcases numerous alien species from the mundane to the profound. One of the most unassuming but prominent of these creatures is the Xenian Barnacle. But while these organisms are easy to overlook, they can also reveal a lot of information and still pose a significant threat of death from above. The Cirripedia Donaldsonia, also simply known as barnacles, is a stationary alien species known to hang from ceilings in order to ensnare prey with its tongue-like appendage. The organism is native to the interdimensional border world Xen, though it is unknown whether it evolved exclusively there or spilled over into the border world via another dimension. In either case, they are a notable presence, suggesting a highly successful reproductive strategy. The Black Mesa Research Facility is the first known human organization to discover the organisms during its many survey missions into the border world. These expeditions proved highly successful, as survey team members were able to bring back both organisms and exotic materials such as Xen crystals. Black Mesa scientist Louis Donaldson was the first of these survey team members to discover the organism. Its taxonomic designation of Cirripedia Donaldsonia is named after him. For that same reason, they are also sometimes referred to as Donaldson's barnacle. Unfortunately, he also became the first human victim of a barnacle. While not explicitly stated, the fact barnacles are commonplace in Xen suggests Dr. Donaldson was part of a very early survey team. The research that followed uncovered numerous facts about the organisms. Barnacles have cone-shaped and symmetrical bodies that grow out from their root attachments into large exterior mouths with several sharp teeth, but their more defining feature is the long tongue that hangs from their mouth that they use to ensnare prey. The tongue will pull their victims in until they are close enough for an inner mouth to grab onto them. These tongues are extremely adhesive unless the barnacle gets killed, suggesting they're covered in tiny barbs such as cilia or setae. The tongues may also try to strangle their victims and are even strong enough to break a person's neck in order to immobilize them. This may explain why human victims often go limp upon being grabbed by a tongue. However, an alternative explanation might be that the tongue incapacitates the prey by means of some sort of paralyzing neurotoxin. This may be why the characters that utilize a hazardous environment suit or similarly strong protective gear never undergo this paralyzing effect. The HEV suit doesn't just provide highly resistant armor, it can also auto-inject the user with antitoxin drugs. Barnacles are estimated to have a lifespan of 500 years, judging by fossils found in their stomach cavities. They can be found in a variety of environments so long as the surfaces they grow out from can support their weight. They are also often found in colonies that can include mature barnacles that are sometimes surrounded by clusters of its juvenile forms. The researchers also determined that the organism resembles an unnaturally large member of the terrestrial subclass of Cirripedia. Thus, they concluded Xenian barnacles came about through an extreme instance of convergent evolution. The researchers also stressed that the Xenian variety are airborne as opposed to their water-based terrestrial counterparts. But, of course, the most notable difference is in how the Xenian barnacle goes after larger prey as opposed to how the Earth variety passively filters nutrients from shifting ocean waters. The barnacle also shares some characteristics with the New Zealand glowworm. These creatures dwell on the roofs of caves and let down silken lines to capture and pull in prey, like mosquitoes and moths. Black Mesa researchers documented their findings on barnacles and other Xenian wildlife in what is known as the Non-Linnean Taxonomic Classification Database. Linnean taxonomy is a general term for describing standard biological classifications. It is named for Swedish biologist Carl Linnaeus, who established a rank-based classification for organisms in 1735, but the current systems have evolved well beyond what he envisioned to reflect the evolutionary relationships among organisms. Therefore, non-Linnean taxonomy may describe organisms outside the terrestrial evolutionary process, meaning organisms subject to evolution that are not Earthlings. Because of the extreme but avoidable dangers these organisms pose, research teams have established a variety of safety protocols for traversing environments they're native to. For instance, researchers are expected to always perform a thorough advanced survey of ceilings before entering caverns and corridors. Humans elsewhere developed their own ways to be safe around these creatures when they began appearing more widespread. A technique deployed by scavengers within the City 17 quarantine zone is to wear head covers like construction helmets, so barnacles grab that instead. This method can also be deployed against head crabs just by simply adding nails or spikes to the exterior of the head covering. Barnacles have two known external senses between their ability to sense heat and motion. The organism can use this to track prey. There have also been a few known instances where objects get attached to a tongue without the barnacle noticing, further suggesting they cannot detect objects without movement or heat. But barnacles also seem to be able to set up ambushes by not unveiling their tongues until prey passes below. However, given its lack of intelligence more generally, this behavior is more likely born from instinct. Barnacles do, however, possess an uncanny ability to attach themselves to surfaces overlooking thoroughfares frequented by potential prey. But this again may not be an indication of intelligence, since the more reasonable explanation is simply that barnacles in less frequented conditions die out, while those in areas with more prey are more likely to flourish. It's also noteworthy that barnacles have been known to ensnare both organic and inorganic objects, only rejecting the inorganic materials as inedible after it senses it with its mouth. Since they can take a moment to differentiate between edible and inedible materials, objects such as tires, barrels, or even pieces of wood can be used to distract barnacles so potential victims can easily slip by. There are exceptions, such as barnacles appearing to be unable to digest bone. Interestingly enough, when eating zombies, they will often choose to only eat the head crab before disregarding the body. This may be an indication of how severe a state head crab zombies are in, considering the only other time they reject human flesh is when it comes to corpses. Meaning, despite the games giving strong indication the human victims of head crabs are still conscious, it would appear their flesh has already begun rotting. These human victims have also indicated they can still feel pain, so on top of being controlled by an alien parasite and all the pain that comes with that, they also likely feel their own flesh rotting. Barnacles will also regurgitate what they have eaten if killed or under extreme duress. Barnacles also appear to be unable to detect if an organism is poisonous and may accidentally kill themselves as a result. Barnacles will start digesting their prey immediately upon being eaten. Their ability to completely dissolve a grown human within seconds suggests they possess highly corrosive stomach acid. On rare occasions, victims can be seen hanging from their mouth, suggesting they have a resting period during digestion. What's noteworthy here is that barnacles can potentially tear free of their root attachment if they attempt to grab excessively heavy prey. A grounded barnacle is essentially harmless, as the adult form possesses no mobility, with the exception of the flagellum, which may possess a small danger until the barnacle base dries and hardens. The creature will then void all external fluids and expire at that point. Since adult barnacles have never been observed moving locations, it can be assumed that their nutritional requirements are relatively low and that they can survive for extended periods without food. Black Mesa researchers kept specimens they brought back from Zen in highly controlled containment areas, including barnacles. But these containment protocols ended up failing completely when an experiment to analyze the Zen crystal caused our reality to be bridged with the dimensional border world. This resulted in countless Zen organisms spawning across the facility and surrounding areas. This would only get worse in the aftermath of the incident, as strange atmospheric phenomenons known as portal storms caused Zenian wildlife to spawn across the world, including barnacles.
Ah, yes, Walter. We were finally able to successfully detach one of the barnacle creatures from its point of gestation. As before, we were still only able to coerce the creature into latching onto organic materials. Unfortunately, the administrator has called me down to the anomalous materials lab this morning for an important experiment, so I don't have any time to further my analysis. Take specimen number 1176 and log anything else you can find.
The barnacle grapple is a variant of the standard barnacle that appeared during the Black Mesa incident. Specimen 1176, as it was officially known, was created when the research team at the Sector E Biodome Complex managed to successfully detach a barnacle from its point of gestation without killing it. The scientists were then able to coerce it into latching onto organic materials such as creatures, fungi, and moss. The Black Mesa incident would put a sudden dramatic end to these experiments. U.S. Marine Corporal Adrian Shepard would discover the specimen and figured out how to use it as a weapon and grappling hook. It would prove critical to his survival, especially when it came to fighting a powerful alien organism known as the gene worm. The barnacle life cycle is well documented, with juvenile and mature variants being observed and studied. What is more of a mystery is the actual reproductive process of barnacles. Human resistance member Russell at one point after the invasion suggested barnacles are able to spread via spores, but this actually doesn't tell us a whole lot beyond that and conflicts somewhat with their taxidermic designation, at least on the surface, as this conflicting information may actually reveal a somewhat unique reproductive process. The Earth-based barnacles are arthropods of the subclass Cirripedia. They are more so related to crabs and lobsters, including how they develop similar larvae instead of something like a fungus that may produce spores. The barnacles are hermaphroditic in that they produce both eggs and sperm, though a few species have separate sexes. The ovaries are located in the base or stalk and may extend into the mantle. The testes are towards the back of the head, often extending into the thorax. From here, barnacles can reproduce many different ways depending on the species, from growing very long penises to releasing sperm into the water to hopefully be picked up by nearby receptive females. It's the latter of which, known as sperm casting, that may be more relevant to the Xenian versions because this process is formed around water instead of air. Spores, however, do travel through air, so this may be the mechanism in which these barnacles can do an airborne version of sperm casting. The only caveat would be the actual genetic information contained in the spore would likely be more so similar to sperm than the terrestrial counterparts, which can be responsible for either sexual or asexual reproduction. No matter what the specifics of their reproductive strategy is, once established on surface, a Xen barnacle will start growing out from the point of gestation as part of its germ stage. The barnacle will continue to grow until it reaches its immature stage. Barnacles are essentially harmless during these initial stages as they have not developed a mouth or mechanism to capture prey. This also may suggest adult barnacles share nutrients with younger members of their colonies. Barnacles will eventually develop a mouth as they enter their adult stage. What's interesting here is the barnacles in Half-Life 1 appear as though they have both immature and adult characteristics. This actually makes a lot of sense given they started appearing around the Black Mesa Research Facility within hours of the failed experiment. This may suggest the juvenile stages can occur within hours, only for their development process to slow upon reaching adulthood or some immediate precursor to it. This may also explain other differences, like Half-Life 1 barnacles having lower health than in later games. Simply, the barnacles during the Black Mesa incident may just be a lot younger compared to the other adult versions in later games that may have had years to develop. The barnacle is not known to have any natural variants besides its own juvenile forms. However, there was a cut version from Half-Life 2 known as the Sand Barnacle. These versions were meant to be hidden under the sand, with the only way to spot them being a small depression above the ground. Similar to their standard variants, their tongue would come out of the sand and grab victims when they got too close. The Xenian barnacle may not be the most assuming creature found in the series, but they do prove to be a great example of how varied and dangerous life is in the games. It's the very fact they are so unremarkable compared to most everything else that makes them so dangerous, because when the player is too busy fighting giant monsters and eldritch horrors, accidentally walking into a barnacle tongue is a very real possibility, a mistake that certainly unites all Half-Life players.